the Google Data Studio, the New Fuel for Growth seminar conducted by Immacity, joined with Safra Digital Media Club, as well as Safra Photography Club. Yeah, I'm Nizar, and I will share with you guys a lot more on this journey about data visualization and how we can use Google Data Studio for all your marketing and, in fact, for all your reporting needs. Okay. So a little bit about Immacity. Okay, so we are basically a WSQ approved training organization. We are also an IBF accredited, right? International Business Foundation accredited, and NTUC UTAP approved training provider. Our training courses are primarily focused on digital marketing, and I'm one of their associate trainers for this particular agency, Immacity. Okay. So at Safra Digital Media Club, we leverage on the ever-growing digital media trends to enhance your social media know-hows. You also learn to create intriguing content through photos, videos, copywriting, imagery designs, and many more. So Safra Digital Media Club, if any of you guys are not part of it, scan out to find out more in the QR code you can see from here. There's some really interesting stuff and really interesting courses which currently Safra is running. You can network with digital media professionals for knowledge and experience sharing, not just by learning new skill sets. You can also create new contacts, right? You can get your hands on the digital media trends and harness digital media skill sets also, right? You can learn content creation from industry experts, right? That's what we're doing right now. And best of all, you can enjoy exclusive benefits and discounts on partners' products and services, right? So this is some of the perks we can have, or you can have, when you join the Safra Digital Media Club or the Safra Photography Club, right? Either or, right? So that's a little bit about our dear partners for today. And also, if you want to level up your mobile plan, VVFee is our partner for this program, right? From now on, you can enjoy a $5 discount off the VVFee share plan. Just use the promo code Immacity during checkout. You can share up to 180 gigabytes. You can enjoy 180 gigabytes contract free mobile plans at a very low cost, and it's valid till end of this month, which is 31st August 2022, right? So if any of you guys want to enjoy or want to have a new a mobile plan, more than happy for you guys to sign up on this. Please use the promo code Immacity and during the checkout, and you can enjoy a very special discount, right? Just $35 instead of the usual $40 for the first 6 months. Okay, so that's for VVFee, one of the partners for our program for today. Okay, so a little bit about myself, right? Apart from being an associate trainer for Immacity, I also run my own management consulting firm called Super Future Kids, right? We exist in 3 countries: Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, and Malaysia, and Singapore. Singapore being the primary headquarters. So what we do is we do lots of market intelligence work, and of course marketing in terms of reporting, in terms of using data visualization. So that's what we do in Super Future Kids. So, and it's something where it's very near and dear to me when it comes to the world of data, right? So as we know, reporting never seems to be an easy task, right? In fact, most marketers, which I believe most of you guys are in this call, cringe just at the thought of it, right? As clients continue to grow, so does the sophistication of their reporting needs, right? So it was in an interesting way when I was, in fact, I have like over 20 years of experience when it comes to digital marketing. At every single point of time, when my clients was asking, like, can we do a report or stuff like that, we always pull out our PowerPoints, and then we start to create all our PowerPoint, make it nice and everything, right? And then we spend a lot of time screen capping, formatting, and trying to make sure that everything is correctly done, right? And when it comes to the analyzing part, we also need to commit an X amount of time to analyze it, because formatting, making it nice is just one part of it, right? But imagine this, right? If I were to tell you guys that there is something else we can do instead of just doing formatting and making sure that the fonts are nice and stuff, how do we cut that out and increase our analyzing? Instead of being reporting squirrels, I would say to my team, how do we be analysis ninjas, right? Where we spend more time analyzing rather than doing the formatting itself, right? And not only just on our end, it's also the fact of the matter that our clients are getting smarter these days, right? And it comes to their reporting needs, they're asking for very specific elements. They expect us to get all these reports done yesterday. So the speed of data, the speed of information, it takes up one notch, right? And with these tools, which I'm about to share with you guys, especially more so with Google Data Studio, we can see that there's a lot of things which we can able to do when it comes to this very specific world of reporting, right? So if you are anything like me, you're tired of spending hours updating the same spreadsheets and PowerPoints each month, and sometimes more time is spent pulling a report rather than providing actual insights, because that's what the client is paying us for. How is the campaign performing? How exactly is it doing? Was it better than the last campaign, right? Is there any insights? What is the highlights? What are the lowlights, right? All those things are something where the clients would love to hear from us, right? And expect us to present it to them, right? So we need to spend a lot more time analyzing rather than creating all these PowerPoints, right? Or even the spreadsheets. Again, I love spreadsheets. I love PowerPoints. It's not that I'm dissing them off, but I feel for this particular scope of reporting, they definitely have a better way for us to do this. And that's which I'll share with you after this, what exactly is that better way, right? When this happens, as in when we're spending more time to format all our reports, we're basically doing our client a disservice by spending more time doing and less time analyzing. Again, we want to give them the best value and at the same time also optimize our time, right? So at any point of time, the client wants a report or a figure or a number which they need to report up to their management or to their peers. They can easily do it even without our help, right? Because what happens is the tool which I'm about to share with you, which I'm sure you guys know, is can able to assist you on that. So all these gripes and this service, right? So that's how exactly can we go about and trying to ensure that pain point is being met. That is when, my dear people, our dear Google Data Studio comes in place, right? This is something fascinating. To be honest, if you guys are familiar, which I'm sure you are in Google Analytics, especially the new GA4, you will see the influences of how Google Data Studio has really gone in. Even way back in Universal Analytics or even GA2 or GA1, right? There was a lot of how the birth of Google Data Studio already persist or prevalent in those platforms itself, right? When they want to come, when it comes to the reporting itself, the visualization. So when Google decides to open up another branch to, or should I say, another platform for all our data visualization needs, I think they made the right choice in understanding how exactly it can be done, right? So that's when Google Data Studio comes in, and it was, to be honest, a blessing in my life, especially my team, especially when it comes to the reporting. Okay. So what exactly is Google Data Studio, right? It's basically a free and easy to use data visualization platform that allows you to bring different sets of information into one place, right? So try to take that back in, right? It allows you to bring different sets of information. So what it does is not just it helps us beautify or ensure that we only use very specific data sets or real-time data sets, but it also combines and unifies data from different pockets of your sources. Say, for instance, you have an Excel spreadsheet, you have your Facebook ads, you have some Google Analytics data, all these things lying in its own native platforms, each one having its own reporting platforms and the same reporting measures and reporting rules and regulations. How do we take all of this together and combine it into one, right? Isn't it so easy? We can literally see the whole customer journey from end to end. On the left, I can able to put in at the same dashboard on Google Data Studio. On the left hand side of the metric, I can put my acquisition, where I can put in my Facebook ads, performance metrics in there. And then we move on to the middle. Same dashboard, move on to the middle a bit, right? Just move your eyes a little bit. We can put into the behavior aspect, where we can put in the Google Analytics data, some goals, some conversions, maybe some event tracking, measurements and metrics. We can place it in there, all in that same view. And maybe thereafter, you can even put in the spreadsheets of the sales figure, for example, right? And you can combine all this data into one single window pane, I would say. One pane, one single view, right? And the best, and one of the coolest part is that you can transform all this raw data into really beautiful reports in just minutes, which I'll share with you. I'll do a proper demo for you guys on Google Data Studio on how exactly it has brought a lot of joy in my life, right? It really saved my time, guys, to be honest with you. So the minute when we have all of these elements, we are able to see how we can literally put it into our workflow. So even when we do up our campaign reports, right? Even any reports for that matter, right? Doesn't have to be campaign. It can be any reports, right? Finance, HR, whatever, right? If you want to have it all done, if you want to present it in a beautiful manner. No, wait a minute. I should reiterate, right? Not just beautiful, but functional manner, right? You create a very specific narrative. Google Data Studio would able to satisfy those requirements, right? So Google Data Studio is basically a free tool, right? It's a data visualization platform that allows you to bring all the specific sets of information into one place and can transform everything into something pleasant for the eyes and for your management and even for your peers to actually look and digest, right? So before I go deep dive into the world of Google Data Studio, I just want to take a step back a little bit, right? I just want to talk a little bit about data visualization, right? Yes, we know it's a very self-descriptive word. Data visualization means visualize data, but what exactly does it do for us, right? We humans, we have a very specific way of deciphering and decoding data or information. Myself and yourself and everyone of the participants here would have a different take when we see a particular spike or we see a particular number, because a lot of things we want to see is we look into things which requires. My metric is very different from your metric. It can be the same dashboard, right? But the way I'm actually measuring my success is different from the way you are measuring success in the way, in the event, we are all looking into the same dashboard itself, right? So data visualization actually helps us analyze the data in a better way, right? So better, again, is a very intangible word, very subjective, right? What do you mean by better, Nisa? Right? What it means is it helps stakeholders focus on the areas that require attention. Interesting enough, I just flew back from Jakarta early this morning, right? And when I was there, I had an interesting conversation with one of my clients, talking about very specific metrics, right? Which requires attention, right? When we look at metrics, which ties in with your KPIs, which ties in the business objectives, right? And when we start to focus, because when I was there in Jakarta, I could see they were talking about a lot of metrics. But it's also important that when we start to visualize data, we tend to focus ourselves on very specific metrics that drive business objectives. It's no use to look at 50 metrics. 5, 7 metrics, it's good enough for all of us. It helps us focus. When we start to visualize that, and then it automatically, the cognitive bias of a human person, of a human brain, in fact, how we decode it, it requires attention by just looking at that very specific metric. And what it does is, it helps us measure and optimize that metrics to see how we can able to make it even better, right? So that's the first thing on how we do a data visualization. It helps us analyze it in a better way, helps us doing the focus, right? Second sub point, it helps us understand the key points that's needed for the business. Like it or not, we humans are visual creatures. We need to see. I mean, we see numbers, yeah, it's fine, right? But for us to literally see and see how exactly and understand those key points, visuals are the way to go, right? So it helps us doing the key points, right? And then a visual representation, again, just helps us show very specific elements, right? Later, I will talk to you guys a little bit about correlation and causation, how very specific metrics will able to understand and affect another different elements, right? In terms of the visual aspect. So all this boils down to data visualization. So we want to analyze data in a better manner. And how do we do that? We visualize the data. That's the first point, okay? Second point, at the speed of things which we are seeing right now, right? We are bombarded with a lot of different types of information, right? So how do we actually make this into an easier or even faster decision-making, right? That's when, again, data visualization comes in. You get a 50-page report, purely just text, right? And you try to make sense of it. You try to use, last time when I was younger, I used a lot of highlighters. or highlight very specific key points and keywords in my report itself, right? But right now, what we can do is when we want to enhance our decision-making processes, we actually did very specific visualizations for very specific data to tell the reader or the audience that, hey, this is a bit more important than anything else. Please have a look at it, right? And so when we process that particular metric or that visual, it definitely helps us try understand or even creates very specific or very good environment to enhance our decision-making processes, right? So as you can see, even like the CEOs and the stakeholders and the business decision makers, when they want to make very specific decisions, they just fire up a dashboard, see and understand how exactly it is, what exactly is happening. They answer the 5 W's, and then most importantly, the whys, and then definitely, and straight away they can say, okay, guys, based on this, let's go do this. Rather than going to nitpicking, trying to hunt and peck there, why is this number going up? Why is that number going down in a tabular format or in a spreadsheet format, right? It's easier for us to create a visualization to enhance and accelerate our decision making. Okay. Third, data visualization also makes sense of complicated data, right? You know, complication thrives in our space, in our area here, right? When we talk about big data, data science, data analytics, data visuals, data compartmentalization, and all those elements of anything to do with data, right? Complication thrives on that, right? And as always, I've always told my team, never ever confuse our audience. Always convince them rather than confuse them, right? So when we want to simplify things, simplify items, right? Of all these complications of this data, right? What do? We identify the very specific metrics and then we visualize those, right? And data visualization allow us to do all those elements, right? Instead of us putting like 100 or 50, 20 metrics in that particular same dashboard, we look very specific in which metric which is making sense to us or is affecting our KPIs and business objectives, visualize those, and then we can able to in very specific insights into that vast amounts of data, right? Instead of putting an X and Y axis or pivot table, right, for that matter, and then we as the users requires us to put in certain values and certain parameters, right, to run a very specific report or to showcase our audience or readers that report. Why don't we just remove all of those elements, pick out the very specific metrics, the X against Y, and then paste it back into our dashboard or even our report for that matter, if it's in the form of a dashboard, right? So visualization actually, again, it kind of forces us to actually simplify items, right? And make it very complicated. Go ahead and use the simplification processes, right? It benefits our audience to recognize new patterns and errors in the data, right? Because as you know, when we look at visualization, it's all looking at trends. It's all trying to understand the anomalies. Hey, wait a minute, that doesn't look right, right? Hey, why is it happening? Within 3 seconds, you're able to see and spot whatever elements in there, right? Data visualization allows us to do that, okay? And for us also to put in that red flag, right? Again, it's all about looking for all these numbers and patterns, right? Visualization actually, data visualization actually assists us and helps us in doing that particular element, right? So data visualization, making sense of complicated data, okay? So the key principles of data visualization is basically these 3 main elements, right? We want to strive for clarity and simplicity, right? Making things as easy as possible, right? And clear, most importantly, it has to be clear. We want to focus on creating a narrative, right? What I mean by narrative is talking about data storytelling, right? Which again, I'll share with you later what I mean by data storytelling. We introduce characters, introduce a timeline, a plot, a climax, and a finale, right? Creating a narrative itself. And of course, most importantly, we want to strike a balance between a design and function, right? So again, when we want to, this is also directly correlated with simplicity, right? Instead of having a lot of multiple filters or multiple values sharing on that same dashboard, can we strike a balance between the design and the function itself? So these are some of the key principles of data visualization, okay? I'll take a pause here for a moment, guys. Do you have any questions in here before I go into the world of the benefits of Google Data Studio? If none, again, feel free to just pop in your questions on the chat. If none, let me go into the next one. The benefits of Google Data Studio. Okay, so what are the benefits? First of all, sorry, I have something wrong. It's free, right? Yeah, it's free when we want to use the platform or when we connect to Google services, right? But if you want to connect to some other elements, there might be a small cost to it, which I'll share with you later, right? But overall, if you want to use Google Data Studio with Google products, Google marketing products like GA4, Google Ads, right, BigQuery, and so forth, in the world of Google, it's free, right? So I'll share with you guys again later what exactly is the free components and what we need to pay a little bit when it comes to the data connectors, when it talks about other data sources, right? But in overall sense, it's being Google, this is basically a free platform, okay? That's the first benefit. Second, it's cloud-based, right? So when it's cloud-based, you can access it anywhere, guys, right? As long as you have your Google Gmail account, boom, you're able to access this platform anywhere, even on your mobile. That's the best part. Even on your mobile, you're able to access all of these elements, all of these reports, right? Even I've tried creating also. It's a bit difficult on your mobile, some reports, right? But you're able to edit it, right, on the go, right? So I've done many of these times, sometimes when users like, hey, there's a little bit of error here. So my staff will go in and then they will just edit it on the fly, right? So those are some things which is very, very useful when it comes to these elements of Google Data Studio. So it's cloud-based, so you can able to access it anytime, anywhere, right? It's less technical, right? Doesn't require to have any programming knowledge or language, right? In terms of understanding how to literally go in and deep dive inside it, right? There might be some formulas, some DAX equations, or shall I say, operators which you need to study or even apply, but those things comes in very rare and very far and few between. Okay, so it's very, very less technical. Again, I'll share with you later how exactly when I do the demo of Google Data Studio. But one thing is for sure, as for all Google products, right, guys, Google loves this mantra. It's very easy to learn, but it's very difficult to master. Okay, right. So because they want to encompass this tool for everyone, right? So there is depending on their level of skill sets and knowledge, right? It also applies to how fast you can able to go in and start to create your report, right? Okay, so but for sure, it doesn't require deep technical knowledge, right? As long as you know how to do a report, you know to pull the data inside, it's going to be quite easy for you. It's going to be quite a breeze for you, in fact. Okay. It unifies your data, team. This is something, again, I really, really love about all these visualization tools, right? It allows us, right? And Google Data Studio is not just the only visualization tool in the market. As I'm sure most of you know, there's a lot of other data tools, visualization tools out there like Tableau, Power BI, Clipfolio, Gecko boards, right? Some coming in the form of you got to install on your computer. Most of them coming in the form of like how Google Data Studio is, where it's all on the cloud, research on the cloud. Most of them are paid. You need to pay for them, right? Some of them are free, right? But Google Data Studio is the one which is a bit, which is coming on the free aspect. But most importantly, also, again, just like how all other visualization tools, it unifies your data. So when you start to employ, or shall I say, start to subscribe this kind of know-how, this kind of reporting behaviors, you really want to start to unify your data, right? Well, again, what I mean by unifying your data is taking all of it from different sources, from Facebook, from TikTok, from IG, maybe from your Google Analytics, right? And maybe from your spreadsheets. And you want to combine them all in one together, in one single dashboard or in one single page, right? Google allows you to do that, right? And what I would say, and the GDS itself. Okay, so it helps us unifies our data so that we can have a very single, clean view of how exactly a particular campaign is performing itself, right? And Google being Google is easily shared, right? Because it's running a Google platform, right? So you're able to literally just add in the username or an email address and boom, you're able to share it very, very quickly, right? You can download it also. You can able to convert it to PDF and send it over, though I don't usually do that because it kind of defeats the purpose, right? Until or unless someone has very poor internet connection, or they're in the airplane, they want to read it offline, they can just download the report and then read it, right? But most importantly, or most usually, we don't really just download it into PDF, because the fact that Google Data Studio itself is supposed to be real time. So we can able to just look at our data, we mouse over our data, we're able to see everything coming out and popping out. And best of all, it's easily shared. Anyone who has any Gmail addresses, just put their names, their email address in there, and with a click of a button, that's it. We can able to share that report itself. Okay. How does it look like? Okay, so after telling about all the features of our dear Google Data Studio, I'm sure by now everyone is very, very keen to see how exactly this looks like, right? And then this is how it looks like. Right? So I just do a screen cap first, right? Very similar to, like you say, like almost like a PowerPoint itself. Like any what you see is what you get tool, right? As you can see from here, right? They have the report title, file, editing, and you're able to put a data inside here. It starts with a clean blank slate as always, right? And then you're able to share your elements in here. You can view it. So you can have the view mode and the editing mode, right? Now on your right-hand side, you're able to see all your data sets, right? Whichever data sets you're going to show. I will deep dive into this later when I show you the demo. Again, it's something very interesting how Google have presented their UI and UX on how we're able to create our reports itself for Google on Google Data Studio. Okay. So this is what exactly you start with. Okay. But what can you create? Okay, so what are the outputs and deliverables when it comes to Google Data Studio? This, my dear team, is how it looks like, right? This is a very standard template which they also have, right? So in the world, as any good tools out there, there's always a great bunch of community people or even their own Google team who helps create templates also, right? So later I'll share with you guys all the resources where you can get beautiful templates, functional templates, not just beautiful, but functional templates on any reports for that matter, right? If you don't want, you can start in like a fresh, like just on a blank slate, and then you just start to pull the data. Else, you can start to pull in, or you can start to leverage on their templates itself, right? So this is a typical type of a dashboard where it shows the Google Analytics itself, right? So they are pulling Google data from Google Analytics. You can just rename it all as elements at the same time, as you can see from here. So this is basically running on a Google Data Studio template, or should I say a report, where it has all the sub filters, and then you can able to see very specific charts which you want. We all know, right? When it comes to Google Data Studio or Google Analytics for that matter, you go into Google Analytics, you'll be flooded with all these visualizations, right? Some of it might be of interest to you, most of it not, right? But let's say if you want to be very focused, again, talking about data visualization, to strive for clarity and simplicity, then when you start to open up your visualization tool, you want to be very specific to what metrics or what graph you want to see, because those things are, how shall I say, relevant to your KPIs, because those things actually makes your KPIs or you're measured against those business baselines, right? So you want to have only the metrics which you want to measure, right? Which you are only particular interested in. So instead of going through like how Google Analytics goes through, it goes to the acquisition, behavior, outcomes, right? Engagement and so forth. You will say like, okay, no, I want only very specific at a glance. Let's learn a little bit more time about users and so forth, right? So you can literally pull all this information out, the ones which you want, put in very specific titles to it, right? So it becomes very self-explanatory, and then you're able to fire up this to your management or whoever who wants to see these reports based on whatever they are interested in, right? So you don't have to show like, oh, you need to see only the page 1, page 2, and you need to see this graph or that graph also that applies to you. Everything else doesn't apply to you. No, you don't have to subscribe to that. You can literally just pull in all the things which is relevant to that team or that stakeholder, and you can build it from ground up. So that's what you are seeing right now. So this is from Google Analytics itself. And then you have also another level of Google Analytics where you can have a different kind of color, like a look and feel, where you put a marketing website summary, right? You can put the very specific scorecard metrics, right? Again, baseline metrics of what exactly, how your users are performing. You can type in, you can literally write in your questions, how are my sites trending? What are the top countries by sessions? You know, what channels are generating engagement? So it becomes again very self-explanatory. You're literally telling a story about how your website is performing, right? From Google Analytics, right? But with Google Data Studio, you have the power to control all this flow and to put very specific titles on specific metrics, right? So again, it all depends on who exactly your audience and your stakeholders is. And based on that, you work backwards and then you put in all this information inside, right? Not just this, team. We can put in all these metrics. And remember, all these metrics, and they have all these very specific dates, date filters. You can able to change the date filters and the data will follow whatever dates it has, right? It doesn't have to be static. All this data can be done through real time or almost real time when the data source is done correctly, okay? And one cool, interesting stuff is that I also got some of my staff saying, hey, Nisa, this is a report. I know this is a dashboard. That's nice and dandy, but I want to type stuff. I want to type in edits. I want to put in some of my highlights. I want to put in some of my observations. It's fine. We can do that, right? Later, I'll show you how to do it, right? So when you start to create all of this information inside, you can create a separate page, or even right below here, you can put a very specific segment or a section where you can type in your own observations. You can type in your own highlights and lowlights. So like say for every month, let's say I want this to be my monthly report, you can literally just save as a blank section somewhere in this dashboard where you can type in your own observation. So every single cadence of the month, right? Let's say on the 31st of every month or 30th of every month, you can tell the client, Mr. Client, I have put in my observations for this particular month. They will come in and they will see like, oh, okay. So do you need any clarifications? If not, let's move on with our lives, right? So every month it becomes a very specific, and unless or until there's a very specific anomaly or trends, then we will say, okay, like let's go through it over a Zoom call or over face-to-face. It's really up to us, right? But again, it gives the clients or the users or the stakeholders who are seeing this even higher clarity. They're able to see your observations which you have written. At the same time, they can able to interpret some of these particular elements on whatever dashboard you've written. Okay, so this is one of the dashboards which is talking about our website. Okay, what are the things you can do? We can even do very specific performance metrics report, like a YouTube sample channel report, right? Because YouTube is done by Google, so we're able to pull this information into our Google Data Studio. We remap some of the elements inside here. Yep, some of this can be a little bit of vanity, some vanity metrics, right? So again, depending on who your stakeholders are or the audience of this dashboard is, and then we can able to put in the specific information. But yes, we can able to pull in information from YouTube itself. All right. Okay. So this is something very interesting also, which I have got one of my team members to do previously. So when I saw, as you can see, that unification of data, right? So on your left is Google performance data. In the middle is the Google performance display data. So on the left is the search, middle is display, on your right is Facebook performance data, right? So this technically exists in 3 different realms, right? Maybe search and display can exist in the same realm because of the fact that they are in the same Google Ads Manager, right? But Facebook exists in their Meta, or should I say, we call it Meta right now, the Meta Business Manager, right? It exists in that particular environment. But what Google Data Studio can do, it will combine and unify all this information. So you, as an audience and a user, will be able to see, oh, okay, it seems to be my search. The lowest clicks in here is basically our dear Facebook. Okay, so it's got 29 cents per cost per click. Oh, I see that display is getting quite higher. So that means when I spent my money in that previous campaign for this particular campaign, which has its 3 channels, right? We're able to do a very specific and very clear cost comparison, very clear performance comparison, in fact, right? We can even choose the type of metrics to see what exactly it meets, and then we're able to come up with our own decisions, telling ourselves and the audience itself, hey, I see that this is basically happening inside the comparisons between these 3 channels. Oh, I could see that our dear Facebook is performing very good. But search, in terms of the CTR rates, oh, that's really up the roof, 17%. Then if I want to dig further in, I can just go and click on the labels itself, and I can mouse over. When you mouse over all of these elements, again, it's not static, yeah? You mouse over, you're able to see pop-ups of the data in real time, right? And you're able to see it here. And then, of course, on top here, let's say, oh, this is the deadline, which is only for 7 days or maybe 12 days or 1 month. Maybe I want to look at only say about 6 days only, right? So you just click on this date filter, and then it comes down a drop-down list, and then you can just choose the dates of your hard content, and then the data would change accordingly to the time frame you have chosen, right? So all this information can be seen from here. Again, this is done customized from ground up. I'll share with you guys how it's done. This is what we do when we start to do platform comparisons, right? Again, unification of your data in one single view, right? So you're able to see and, of course, make very specific decisions on, let's say for this particular example, when we put in money for all these 3 platforms, which platform did the best, right? Again, in just within about 15 to 20 seconds, I'm able to do it without pulling myself in other different platforms or trying to pull all the different spreadsheets, and then you got to, alternate tab, alternate control, trying to see, okay, where is this in this, and then you have to like combine data together. None of that, guys. No more formatting, right? Or shall I say less formatting, right? And more time analyzing, right? So this particular platform, or shall I say the Google Data Studio, allows us to do that, right? Okay, so you can see from here again. Oops, sorry. Oh, what did I do? Sorry. It's not just for us to also create reports, right? I have been with my clients and we actually do TV dashboards also, right? On using Google Data Studio, right? We pull in because Google Data Studio will be able for us to pull in maps, right? So you can pull in very nice, beautiful maps, and then we can able to put in and plot in very specific charts, specific metrics, specific numbers in those particular dashboard itself. The dashboard can it can literally be anything you want, team, right? It doesn't have to be like, oh, it has to follow a matrix on top, I have to have a pie chart on the right. No, none of that. It's really up to how we want to dress it up and what is the story you want to tell, right? For this particular use case was the client wanted to know very specific elements on how their users are performing in these different markets which they are in, right? This was more for a metric called the DAU, the daily active users and the monthly active users, right? So they wanted to see where exactly this information is coming in one single glance, right? Instead of them switching on Google Analytics, the different countries and different period of minutes, or worse, getting each and every of their country managers to send back their reports on the number of users or into a spreadsheet where everyone starts to share. And sometimes people get confused, and when you are tired, human errors happen because you are dealing with numbers. What they did here was they actually recreated this into one single Google Data Studio. They combined all their Google Analytics and GA4 data connectors into one single view, and then boom, we're able to map everything out in just that manner, right? So you can see from here, this is their use case where they want to see their users coming in from different parts of the world, how exactly it's being done, and where exactly they are coming in from. Okay. Next. Oh yeah, so this is one of the nice templates which we saw, or one of the nice things, reports which one of the community members in Google Data Studio did, right? So he wanted to tell a story, right? About who? About Anthony Bourdain, right? Anthony Bourdain is this late, very celebrated chef, right? He passed away a couple of years back, right? But it's a very celebrated chef. So they wanted to understand where exactly is his episodes on in different particular seasons, right? So in different particular countries. So instead of them putting in a spreadsheet or a tabular format, which can be done, right, in a tabular format, what they did was they just visualize it, right? So Google Data allows you to do that. So they take all this information inside here, they visualize it, and within seconds, you're able to understand, I see where exactly is it coming from when it comes to Cook's Tour in seasons 2002 and 2003. Most likely it's from Europe, right? We're able to see from that elements, right? So again, data visualization helps us create not just dashboards or reports, but it also gives us a clearer picture in the event we want to tell a very specific story, right? So in this particular element, it's literally telling a story of Anthony Bourdain's travels and tribulations, right? So this is what exactly they have. This person has visualized this data, right? Next. This particular community created this on Google Data Studio was more to understand the expenditure of GDP. Interestingly enough, this came out in one of the UNESCO's Institute of Statistics, right? So they put this live on their website itself. One thing good about Google Data Studio is you can embed your reports live, right? So people are able to literally play with it and engage with it, right? So this was one of the particular examples, right? Where they want to answer a question: how much do countries invest in research and development, right? So based on its R&D expenditure by percentage of GDP, gross domestic profit, from 2011 to 2016, they used the bubble map chart, right? So then you're able to see like how exactly this works. So when you mouse over all these bubbles, you're able to see very specific information, right, on very specific elements, right? So as you can see from here, how we put it the X and Y axis, that's how they have visualized their data when it comes to countries in investing in the world of R&D. Okay, so this is again people using Google Data Studio to tell about, instead of just putting boring articles or just text and images, they decided to create almost like an interactive infographic, okay, using Google Data Studio. Next, like this is a really interesting report, right, I would say, which was done on Google Data Studio about this movie director, M. Night Shyamalan, right? And they will actually share what happened to him exactly. So they use Google Data Studio to tell a story about what really happened to him, right? How his gross box office revenue, how much his movies made, right? So there was nicks and everything. So it was a very interesting, almost like a interactive infographic where I'm able to move to next pages and able to see the charts. And they were telling, the author who wrote or who designed this report was literally telling a story, you know, what really happened to M. Night Shyamalan by using very specific data from IMDb, from the MPA, the Motion Picture Academy of Arts, right? So he used all those really interesting information. He pulled it out, make it into a spreadsheet, and then he fed it into Google Data Studio, right? I see that he took quite a bit of work to be done, but most importantly, it was that thinking process, right? He led me into a very nice visual story journey, which I came able to see how exactly it works, right? Fantastic, fascinating. I really like this. Again, it throws the norms out of the window, right? Instead of people saying, oh, must we use GDS for creating dashboards and performance? No, you can put it's whatever, again, your heart's desires when it comes to this, okay? One more example, right? Flourishing gaming business, right? I got this for one of my other mates, right, in the States. They actually pull this out inside here, putting in, instead of them creating a PDF or PowerPoint, they literally created a dashboard, or should I say a report on Google Data Studio. So you can literally click on all of these elements. You know, when you click on the icons, you can explore it, right? And then it brings them onto all this beautiful and functional graphics where people are able to see, I can see that what's the market share by developer, what is the sales by scenario. If I click on this filter here, you can able to browse through and toggle through the different genres, what is the electronic service rating bureau, and so forth, right? Very interesting information. They visualize this data, and then so that people can able to act upon it, okay? So that's one of the examples of how exactly GDS can able to do it. So how exactly does all of this work, right? So when I was talking about data connectors just now, right? So let me just show you guys in a very simplified manner, right? This is how exactly a Google Data Studio garners this report. As you can see, on your left-hand side is the services, right? What service do you want, or what type of data sets do you want, right? Is it coming from Google Analytics? Is it coming from Facebook, from IG, from TikTok? So far, there's a lot of any type of service you guys want. Just put it inside here. And then, so what exactly is the glue that binds these things together is the data connector. Later, when I open up the Google Data Studio, I'll share with you all how a data connector looks like, right? So because you need to ensure that when you have a report, it needs to have a data source, right? So two things inside here. The connector is basically the API, or shall I say that the little code which talks to the reports. But the data source, that bit is where the information comes in. So later, again, I will share with you on how it looks like and how it works, right? But this is basically how the flow is when it comes to Google Data Studio, right? So whenever you have a report, you must have a data connector, right? So because and the data connector is basically it's a combination of the connector and the source itself, right? So what data connector do you want? If it's running on Google, more often than not, is easily available. If it's running on other different platforms, you can able to see it on other things called the third-party connectors, where you can able to select and choose. And depending on that third-party connectors, some of them needs you to pay a small fee to use their data connector. Most of them don't, but some of them still allow us to do. Needs a small fee of sorts, right? So that we can use that and the payment comes either through monthly or one-time fee, right? Just to use that data source, because they have created a data source so that that particular data can be read on your Google Data Studio. Okay. So when I talk about these data connectors, right? Something because what exactly these are talking about, right? These are what is the data connectors. Remember, the data connectors, there's a lot of it out, almost 800 plus and counting, yeah. When it comes to how you want to connect your information to Google Data Studio. That's why it is. How you want to connect your information to Google Data Studio, you need a data connector, right? And so all of this comes in when you start to create a new report. Google Data Studio will automatically prompt you, please choose your data connector. And then you choose like, okay, I want to run Google Analytics. Okay, I choose Google Analytics. When you click on it, then they ask you which account you want to use it, which GA account is supposed to be you want to pull the data from, and that's it, right? Later, again, I'll share with you how it works. And same goes for any connectors for that matter, right? They'll ask you for what connector you want, and then they ask you for your authentication, so to speak, right? Let's say for Facebook ads, they'll ask you for the authentication. You click on yes, and then you are able to start pulling anything and everything from that particular ad manager which you have access to. Okay, so this is the one of the key critical components when it comes to Google Data Studio. You need a data connector, or what you call a data source, right? So when you need a data source, and then you can able to visualize it on your Google Data Studio itself, right? So as mentioned, there's a lot of data source connectors, right? So it's not just marketing tools, team. There's a lot more, guys. There's a lot more when it comes to Google Data Studio's connectors. In fact, it keeps counting, and it's a lot more when it comes to HR softwares, even gaming softwares also. They would have very specific connectors to point back into Google Data Studio. So you have all of these very interesting connectors which you can use to visualize in your Google Data Studio itself. Okay. What are the use cases for Google Data Studio? You're gonna tell a data story, which I mentioned just now, right? It's the ability to present data in a very visually appealing way, right? So you're gonna bring to life with colors, charts, and images, right? So those are the things which you want to do it, right? And most importantly, team, I always believe in this, is telling a story, right? So nobody walks out of a presentation saying, hey, what a beautiful pie chart that was, right? Or what a brilliant looking line or tree map I just saw, right? It's all about that story, right? That's also the reason when we watch movies, what really captures us is the story, right? So when we start to introduce very specific characters in our charts, we start to put in very specific plots or even a climax, right? So when we have a report, when we start to run a report, right? Building up that climax, building up that finale, those are the things which your boss, or I mean, like our stakeholders or even our peers would remember us for. But being a data analyst, right, when it comes to trying the ability to create a data story, to be honest, it's not easy at all, people, right? It's something where you need to ensure that you have certain elements in place, right? But it will come through experience, and when you start to see all of those visuals, when you start to pull out the data in, then you will say, maybe I should tell this story, or maybe I can tell that story based on whatever the trends are coming out, right? So those are the things which we can do from that particular while alone, right? Oh, sorry, let me just put this up here. Okay. So when they saw what data story, this was the example I was sharing with you. Okay. I have a question coming. I'm sorry, I have someone who just asked a question when it comes to data source, right? We can choose up to 5 data source, right? So the connectors, you can choose up to 5. Remember, we can unify all of this, right? So you don't have to only choose one only, right? But for us, we're trying to start and play with it. Choose one first. Later I'll share. You just choose one first. And then once you are feeling a bit more confident, you can bring in a couple more, right? So you can choose up to 5 data connectors. I believe the max you can put into one report without it making too slow is about 8 data sources, right? So you can put it concurrently, 8 data sources, so you can start to unify them, like, oh, I want this from here, I want that from the data source, I want that from this, and so forth, right? So that is basically how many data sources you can start to pull in. But my recommendation, my suggestion, when we want to start out with usually Google Data Studio, we choose one data source first, familiarize yourself with the UI UX, the features, and how exactly it works, and then after that we can build from then on. Okay. Yes, so we can have multiple data sources in a single dashboard. Okay. I see. Okay. So I got another question. It looks very much like Tableau. Yes, that's correct. Right? Other than free of charge, can we help to elaborate more on what Google Data Studio can do that Tableau cannot do? Okay, that's a very good question, David. To be honest, both of them has its pros and cons, right? It's a quick one on this, yeah. When it comes to Tableau and Google Data Studio, both of them have its pros and cons, right? One of the key things for Tableau is that you need I mean, again, it's based on personal experience, yeah. It's the learning curve is a bit steeper on Tableau. It's a little bit steeper, right? And though Tableau has an excellent academy program for you to learn and all this, right? But the learning curve is slightly steeper, I would say, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing which I would say for Tableau, because again, I play with a lot of data visualization tools, even like Power BI for Tableau also, right? Of course, you go to the studio, but based on my experience and from my knowledge, I still feel that the GDS still have a slightly edge, right? When it comes to the reports, right? Because ultimately, it's all about communicating what you really want to tell to your stakeholders and to your readers or to your audience itself, right? You can use any tools again. So I would not say, oh, please go down for Google Studio. If you find Tableau a much easier way for you to come in, yes, by all means, go ahead, right? Because they have all their pros and cons, and I will not say like, oh, you should just go for Google Studio or you should just go for Tableau. Again, it depends on where exactly, what state of your knowledge you have, right? But what I'm trying to emphasize on this point is, all this, like any good softwares, there's always it depends on what your needs and your wants are. Okay, so when it comes to GDS and Tableau, right? Okay, because more often than not, if I were to answer the question directly, David, right, on whether what can it do, what can it do, it kind of like negates, right? More often than not, both they on a bare baseline, both of them are great visualization tools, right? Maybe some of them has some limitations when it comes to data sourcing or data connector. Maybe some of their graphs, instead of them supporting up to 55 graphs, they can only support 22 graphs, something along those lines, right? So again, it depends, right, where exactly this particular platform is. Okay, all right. Okay, next. So telling a data story. All right, that's basically it. Okay, that's hold on, where was I just now? The use cases. Okay, got it inside here. Okay, so again, when we look at the data story, right, it's not just also telling like a very compelling story, right? You also want to see, when we do our visualization, when we start to visualize, or shall I say, want to plan where or the metric is going to be, right? We always use something called how the journalist uses this also, right? Interesting enough, right? When we read our articles on the newspaper, on the website, right? You're able to see they will always have a very compelling tag or headline to pull us in first. Hey, well, that's interesting. Okay, that's a nice headline. And then after you start to read the primer, right? The second set of paragraph. Then you want to start to read the body content, right? It is that same logic when we start to create a dashboard also. We want to have the most noteworthy info on top first, then the important details, and then the general background below, right? Because as for how we see the human eye, top to bottom, left to right, right? We apply these elements exactly like how when you read papers or when we're scanning through articles, which one shall we start to invest our time to read or spend more time in? Those are some of the elements we looked at, right? Again, it has the same element, or should I say the same behavior will be used when we want to design our dashboard also. Okay, so I will speak a little bit more about this later in the next coming slides. Static out-of-date reports, right? Okay, so I know a lot of people have reports where they have to do the copy and pasting, right? So this was the one of the graphs which I was telling you guys about, right? No more time wasted on screen capping, cropping, pasting, right? Google just pulls them all out, and none of this will ever happen, right? No more waiting, because you can access it anytime. It's on the cloud, right? So anytime you want to report, boom, click on the link and you can be able to see it. No lag in response because it's real time, right? You're able to toggle date ranges, custom filters, right? So everything becomes a bit more interactive, right? And you don't have to fit one size that fits all, right? You can have very specific reports, right? You can have a main, like I'll call it the God view report, and then you can cut in and splice into different types of reports for different kinds of people. Okay. All right. Next, let's go to the demo itself, right? Just being aware of the time, right? It's 9 p.m., right, guys? So let me go to the demo. I'm just going to show you guys how it looks like. Okay, so you can see from my screen here, right? So when you all first sign up for Google Data Studio, this is not the screen, the first thing you see, right? You'll be able to see this. They will ask you for your Google email address first. Put your Google email address and boom, you're able to see this, right? Obviously, you won't see all these reports, which I've done previously, but you'll hit onto the blank report on left hand. So this is basically the starting homepage of your Google Data Studio, okay? So you can either click on the blank report, but as you can see, what I've shared with you also, you can also start on templates also, right? But for the sake of today's session, let me just click on a blank report, okay? Let's put this up for you. Okay. So the first thing when you start a blank report, it will ask you what connector do you want to use? Basically, what data source do you want to pull first, right? Again, as I mentioned, you can pull from analytics, ads, Google Sheets, Campaign 360. You can see from here, right? YouTube, Search Console, Google Surveys, right? Anything from whichever is from Google itself, you're able to pull inside here, right? And then you even have the partners connectors, right? Again, some of these elements needs to pay. On top here is more often than not is free, okay? Which is basically because it's all under Google, right? But these partner connectors, right? Because they are not built by Google and built by all its third-party agencies, they will require to put a small fee for them, right? Be by per month or one time. Usually it's per month lah. And the fee, if you were to ask me, or how much it is, it roughly ranges from $20 US all the way to $100 US, right? So you can use that particular data connector. So you can start to read it from, let's say, from Facebook, from IG or whatever not. So that's the only fee you pay. Everything else, you don't pay, right? Everything else is free, right? So the only thing you are paying is basically just that data connector, which is out of Google's ecosystem, right? But that's how the beauty of it, right? Because you want to unify data. For one, I find that fee very, very much worth it. And again, if you want to compare to other data visualization tools, it is slightly cheaper than what you will compare to the rest. Okay. Right. So for the sake of our call for today, let's just choose Google Analytics. So I click on Google Analytics. And then they ask me which reports. So as you can see, I've got tons of reports here. Let me just put in a GA4 report. And I click on Add. Right. I'll go into the demo account for GA4 Google Merchandise Store. I'm just going to pull it out. Right. Automatically they start to put in some information here, right? But no, I don't want this table. I'll just remove it, right? So interesting enough, what I like to do here, guys, is you can see here, right, on the top second row here, right, themes, and then followed by all of their other features on this Google Data Studio. I will usually go from left to right. Why? Because it's a theme first, right? So I click on the theme and layout, right? Inside you can see, let me choose black, kind of like black, and it's nice, right? So after you choose the black, and then let's say I'll click a text. I want to put in, let's say this is my first Google Data Studio report. Okay. And then of course, you don't have to be content with that. You can make it bigger. Let's put it now. Make it a bit bigger here. Okay. Right. Combine. Boom. Okay. So you've got your title already there, right? So what's next? Okay, again, left to right, yeah. So you can see your shapes, your text, and then your image. Later, so you can put your own image here, right? So you can just click on here and then upload from computer. You can start to put in your own logo, your brand, whatever not, so you can put that here. But usually on my top right-hand corner, I like to put in my date. Okay, so I can just go inside here, add a control, and I put in date range control. Click on that. I like to do it here. Boom, you have your date range control. Automatically, guys, click and drag. Right, so now I've already got my title. I got my date range. Okay, so what's next? Let's add in a chart. Okay, let's add in a chart. Remember, I pull in from Google Analytics from the demo merchandise store. Okay, so that's why I'm pulling data from. Okay, add a chart. Let's do a map. Let's do a bubble map. Okay, so I want to put it in here. Just going to pull it from here. As you can see from here. Right? So if you click on it, you're able to even choose and edit the data inside here. So you can see from countries, let's say I can just put in cities. Can I put cities inside here? Yes, I can. Put the cities and they'll just pull it only the cities inside here. Oh, I think there's going to be a bit more, right? So it's going to load up and you're able to see it from here, right? You can see it a little bit more, right? And you can even make it mouse over and then you can make it even bigger, right? But let's just put it from here. And then, okay, so I've got my map in here. Let me add more charts. Let's add in a pie chart, okay? Put it one here, so you can see, just mouse over, click on it. You're going to put a charts here, right? So you're going to say, okay, what exactly is this? So what you choose, because you know it's from Google Data, from Google Analytics. Then you can go inside the city. Let's say I want to put under users. User source. Then you can go from here. Then you can see what exactly the source is, right? Okay. Yes, I've just got a question. How to log in under the sheet? Yes, you just under Google. That's correct. You can just put in the Google email address and can go inside the Google Data Studio itself, right? Let me just look at under Q&A. I've got Q&A. One-off payment. Yeah, sometimes in the data connector, which you want to choose, let's say there's some Facebook data connectors, right? And they'll ask for about, I think about $80 just for a one-time fee, right? But you pay to the agency itself, right? Which created that data connector for you, right? But more often than not, they usually ask you for a monthly fee, maybe 10 or $15 to use their data connector so that you can pull data from, for example, Facebook ad, right? So again, it depends on what data source you are trying to pull from. Okay. Okay, that's done. All right, so this is basically what I've shown you, some pie charts. Let me just go in and put in a couple more charts, maybe a line chart. You can put a bar chart here. Right. So I'm going to put in, let's put this under date, right? Again, if you guys are familiar with Google Analytics, which I'm sure you are from GA Google Analytics, this is definitely right your alley. It looks at dimensions and metrics, right? Dimensions and metrics, quantifiable and qualifiable, right? So you're able to see what exactly it is. Okay, I want to put in date here. Here, I want looking at active users. Let me just put users, right? I want to have new users. You can use from here, right? So you can able to see all these elements are here. So within what, less than a minute or 2 minutes, I'm able to come up my own report itself, right? So you can see from here. Let me just zoom in a bit more for you guys so you can see it, right? Yeah, so you can see from here, right? So I just have to click on one of this again. And again, the data sets will all appear here. And you're able to even style it to your heart's content. You can put a bubble layer, as you can see from here, the 50%, allow pen and zoom. And this is basically for the map itself. Else, if you want to click on here, you can see from the style, I can able to look at the colors, different reference lines. Again, like all new users in a fresh new environment, I will just put it inside here. Remember, guys, you cannot break this, yeah. Or there won't be any errors, or you corrupt the data. None of that. I've tried that thing, to be honest with you. Try to break or spoil the data. It will not work, right? So don't worry. So you are free to go and play until the heart's content. Worst comes to worst, alamak, I don't know how again. Just go on the top left-hand corner, you see the icon of the Google here, Google Data Studio. Click on it again, and you go back to the homepage again. And you can see it's another report. It will automatically save, yeah. So everything is all automatically saved. You just click on it again, and you can apply inside here. It doesn't have to be a global map. You can put it into a map of Singapore. So let's say I edit this, right? Click on it. I can just put in location, right? To town itself, right? Right now I'm putting to global. Hold on. Let me just switch it because I'm able to switch the report level. Hang on, yeah. There is a map here. Set up. Filter, right? So you're able to, from here itself, you're able to filter and put in the city itself, right? So there's all these elements inside here. You can just put it South Asia and or just that particular APAC region, only Asia region. So it will show only the Asia region here, right? I can't show you here because right now I'm putting under the Google merchandise store, right? But if you have to go into the level, you can able to choose what sort of city you want to put in, right? The sort of region you want to put in, right? So you're able to put it in that particular manner, and then it will just show you just APAC region. Then you can say Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, or whichever countries you want to see. You can even zoom in just only to Singapore also, right? So you can only just see Singapore itself. Okay. So it doesn't have to be a global map. You can literally put in all these elements inside here. Okay. All right. So this is basically how the data studio looks like, right? So again, when you're doing the reporting, right, you don't go into this mode. You always click on the view mode. See bottom right hand, top right hand corner here. Click on this, and then you're able to see. Then it becomes the view mode where people will be able to see, and then you present it on that element. They can use it from here, right? Even for when you want to share to people, you can see the top right corner. You can share this. If you want to share, then just type in, right, whoever's name is this, and then you can tell them, I can only view, right? I can only edit, right? Then you can able to they will want to see this. If view, they can only see this mode. If you give them editing access, then you're able to see this mode where they're able to go inside here. If you get it editing access, then they can delete, they can remove. I can remove all my what's that called? The formatting, right? Not data, yeah, formatting, right? So because the data is all been locked in the data source, right? So you don't delete data here, you just delete the formatting, right? But like any good tools, Control Z will just do the trick for you, right? Same, you can still use the same commands and information from here, right? So again, you can able to put in different pages. So this page 1, I can put page 2, right? It's add a page, and boom, and then a page 2 will appear, right? And then I can put in another chart here. Let's say I want a line chart. And then you can able to see from here, right? Automatic data comes out. You can choose the event name, views. Okay, I don't want event name. I want views. Maybe I want views against, let's say, ARPU. So you can, again, choose all the information right out to your heart's content. Okay, even the colors can all be done in this manner. So viewing, sharing, and all those elements inside here. Then you can even add data. Remember? Unification of data, right? So you want to put in 2 or more data inside, or 3 or 4. Just click on add data, and that familiar data connector pops up, and you'll be able to see it from here. Okay, and then you can be able to choose and then put in the data inside, and boom, you're able to see it from, and you can be able to pull another set of metrics information inside this particular space. Okay. Okay, I got another question here. Understand you can pull in data from Facebook ads. What about organic posts on Facebook and IG? Example to show reports of a campaign using purely organic efforts. Good question, Pauline. Yes, you can pull in all this information, right? That's when you pull in Facebook insights. They have this connected Facebook insights where you can pull in even Instagram insights. And let me show you something. I don't know whether I have it in here, right? Hang on, team. Let me just show you something. Yeah, you can able to do that. I think I might have it. Let me just show it for you all. Got something. Oh, let me see. Let me see. Yeah. Oh no, it's not showing anymore. Okay. So yes, Pauline, you can able to see it all from the elements, right? I couldn't show you the other one, I think, because of there's some sensitive data inside there, right? But what I'm saying is you can able to put it inside there, and you can put it in a very nice and functional way of doing things, right? Because you all know that Facebook managers, when they put in all the organic posts and everything in just simple tabular format, here you can put a heat map, right? So when you have a heat map table, you can put in all the information inside. Within one glance, you're able to see which of my organic posts has the most engagement because of the heat map, right? So yes, you can do that for your Facebook itself. Okay. Good question, Tierney. Are there any PDPA rules to take note when retrieving organic and paid data? Because PDPA rules only applies for something what they call PII information, personal identifiable information. So in this particular region in Rainier, we don't collect any of this data until or unless you have first-party data, right? Which you have collected in, let's say, your previous campaign, and you want to apply it here, right? You can, but you have to anonymize those user, those first names and last names and their IC numbers. You have to anonymize, right? But when it comes to organic and paid data, again, it depends on who your stakeholders are. We can't get that information until unless you have the first party data with you. And if you want to visualize it, you have to have very specific rules and regulations. Yes, the PDPA rules would apply when you have first-party data. But when you have organic and paid data, more often than not, I don't think you will have any personal identifiable information, right? Until unless you start to pay a telco lah, right? And then ask them for this information, that also will give you anonymized data in some degree lah, right? Right. So that is the answer for that. Okay. So it depends on what sort of information you want to display on the Google Data Studio itself. Okay. All right. Look into any more. Okay. So that's a little bit about some demo. I just want to share with you guys a little bit more. Again, let me just run this out for you guys, right? Okay. So that was a demo. Again, a very quick demo. I'll share you guys some YouTube links also later after this call. All right. So at least you can able to see if on how to really use Google Data Studio and how to really set it up. Right. Again, setting up is very easy, guys. You just need a Google email address. The minute you go in, but how to use it. But if you can see from there, it's very straight up. Just need to start deploying some data. Again, the best thing is when you trial and error. Right. That's the best thing. But I will provide you some YouTube links also. Okay. So I'm going to show you some 12 golden rules. Right. It's the part 1. We don't do the sake of dashboard because we like it because it's beautiful. You will fail very spectacularly, right? We have to be clear what we want to achieve, right? And then we'll inform its design, right? What you want exactly, right? Do you really need a map? Do you really need a map? What exactly does the user see when they see a map, right? So we start to think ourselves, right? Oh, maybe we want to have this metric. But if that metric is just that metric alone, it does not make sense. You need to compare it, right? So that's why you have the baseline, like, oh, maybe it's this compared to last month, this is 15% higher. That's why it's put as 40, right? So there's some contextualization, right? Only include what's important. Yeah, I always tell this to my team. Please input only what's important, right? That's why I told them about the MRMS, most relevant metric stack. Very thing which I always tell my team, it has to include only what's important. Everything else is just noise. Okay. Point 3, consider data ink ratio, right? Avoid decorative elements. I know a lot of people like to do lots of nice, beautiful graphics here, some picture there, some icon here, some icon there. But if it's getting, you can put some, I'm not saying don't put, right? But try not to be too distracting, right? That's why it needs to be clear, clean, simple, get straight to the point. That's it. Always try to digest information in seconds. If you can't do it in seconds, something's wrong somewhere, okay? Consider data ink ratio. Round your numbers. If you start to put in decimals, then I say 2 or more points, then it starts to get a bit not precise. So usually I try to round my numbers as much as I can, right? Use the most efficient visualization, right? Sometimes it's okay to use a tree map. Other times not, right? Pie charts, not so much, right? Because I really love line charts because it really tells me the trend. Pie charts don't. They just tell me, okay, what's the big one, the biggest, and then you mouse over, like, okay, what else can I do with it, right? So you want to contextualize your visuals, try as best as you can to use it against the timeline charts and X and Y axis, bar charts, stack bar charts. Those are very good, actionable information which you can straight away tell and get whoever needs to use it from there. Group your relative metrics, that makes them easiest to find, which basically means like, okay, these are basically performance metrics, this is vanity metrics, this is exploratory metrics, and so forth, right? So you're able to kind of guide the audience when they start to read your dashboard itself. Be consistent. Use the same visualizations and layouts makes comparing much easier. It's all about comparison, guys, right? It's all about trying to understand those numbers, trying to make sure, am I doing good? Am I doing bad? All right. So whether is there a trend? Is there not a trend? Why is there a trend? Why is it happening? So when you have these dashboards, you have these metrics, you want those to be communicated very clearly. Okay. Give your numbers context. That's what I mentioned just now, right? If you just leave the numbers just like that, it does not make sense. Let me just show you guys what I mean by giving numbers context, so you all will understand what it really means. Yeah. Let me just show you all a little bit here. Bear with me, team. I just want to show. Okay, there you go. Okay. When I say it means context, right? You see this. If I don't put in 3.4% difference or down, I don't know whether this 59,000 number is good. Yep, it's big. Yep, it looks good, but I'm not sure. Is it good or is it bad, right? But if I have this little interesting icon, or shall I say baseline, which says that, hey, it's based on this month, last month, we are down 3.4%. Then it's just like, oh my goodness, then this number doesn't look so big anymore, right? So it's important for us to contextualize our numbers. So have all these little, I would say, comparison baselines, right? Google Data Studio allows us to do that, putting some very specific comparisons. So when you see that number, you straight away know, okay, 43.7%, that's a good number because there was a 6.2% increase based on last month, right? So that's what I mean by contextualization. Okay. Use clear labels for your audience. Keep them short, self-explanatory as best as possible. Remember, it's for the people. It's okay to break rules if it increases engagement, right? And I always do this, keep evolving on dashboards, right? Sometimes whenever we launch our first dashboard or first report for our users, for our audience, more often than not, 80% is okay, but the other 20% is always up for changes and optimization, right? So that's how we would work on this element, okay? How to get started? Again, go to this link. I think later we can share this link to you with you guys, right? Datastudio.com, or just Google Data Studio on Google and then you're able to get it out. I'll pass you this link. Head over to YouTube and watch this. It's a very interesting 15 minutes, about 15 to 20 minutes, I believe, of a video where they tell you step by step on how to use Google Data Studio. And then, of course, the gallery, which I can share with you all. This is how it looks like. This is how the video looks like, right? Yeah, this is the guy, Google Data Studio for beginners. It's about 14 minutes, right? It really gives you all a step by step on how to do it, right? And then some of the marketing templates, you can see that you don't have to create from scratch, right, team? Always remember, there's always a plentiful of all these templates out there. Look at them, see how it makes sense. If it makes sense, you can use it. Just change the data connector and boom, it's yours already. Okay, very straight up and very easy to use, right? So that's for the marketing gallery templates. Okay, let me just plan it out. So to wrap it all up, honestly, there are dozens of data visualization tools out there designed purely to simplify people's business intelligence process. Okay, unlocking the power of your data with interactive dashboards, it really inspires business decisions. I've seen it firsthand, team, how exactly when people start to use dashboards, starts to use real-time reports, things gets better, right? And then you can able to point out things even further. I've gone to clients where they have like literally not just a command center. You can see there's interesting TVs up there. They literally put their dashboards there. It doesn't cost much, right? But it actually gives all their staff to know, like, okay, guys, you know what? We really need to make our mark. We are not meeting our numbers, right? It gives them an impetus, right? Or it shows them the goodness of how exactly their campaign is performing, right? So they're always looking at this information and the numbers keeps driving into them, right? And best of all, GDS is free, right? It's not technically fully free, but when you start on it, it's free, right? And it's easy to use, right? So I would always implore users to come in and try Google Data Studio. If you ever want to stay, okay, maybe I want to try Tableau or try Power BI, right? Try GDS first. Try and see how it is. It's free to use, play with it, understand the concept, the mechanics of how people are using it, right? Because I always feel data is very powerful and data means nothing if you can't do anything, right? So you always remember that, as an old saying goes, right? It will always be data first, then information, and from information turn to knowledge, and knowledge turns to wisdom, right? But how do all of this comes in context is when we start to visualize it. We humans are very visualized creatures, and I will really say that with Google Data Studio, it really helps us enhance all these elements, okay? So that's basically Google Data Studio, the new fuel for growth, I would say. Okay, I'll take a pause here for a moment. I got 2 minutes left. More than happy to answer any questions which anyone has for that matter. Any questions? Okay, we have one here. If we are managing a client's social media pages and want to use GDS to create a report on a campaign performance, can we access the data on our own, or do we need to use the client's login to link the date? Oh, okay. No, we need to have access first. You need to have access to the data itself, right? Which basically means the client needs to pass you their basically access to their business manager, right? It just needs to be, it doesn't have to be edit access, just readers access is good enough, or advertisers access, and that's good enough, right? The minute they give you the access, Then what we need to do is we just have to go into the data connector and then pull in the Facebook inside data connector, right? And then you're able to pull the data in and then show it on Google Data Studio. Yep. No worries. The question is very clear, right? So we still need to use, you still need authentication process, right? Like all other platforms, it's very imperative to know that you must have your the particular authentication. If you don't have any authentication, let's say you don't have access to the client's profile of Facebook or Business Manager or even their Instagram, then you cannot pull the data, right? You need to have the authentication for that. Okay. No worries, Pauline. It's free. When you log into Google Data Studio, there are no charges. It's all free, guys. Right? You log in, you create your account in Google Data Studio, it's free. There's no charges of any sort, right? No, nothing of that sort. And I hope there is no charges for forever, right? Okay. Okay. Any interesting things you can do with GDS? Oh, yes, we can, right? I've done very specific things, so something beside the normal drag and drop. Yep, we can easily put pictures inside and then just have some, we have done some interesting ways and quirks on how we can use GDS. It's literally like how you use your PowerPoint, right? The world is literally your oyster. You can literally put anything and everything in there. You can able to use and do many things out of the norm, right? To actually do up your reports itself, right? So yeah, it just doesn't have to be included in the workspace, right? Even in the personal space, I also use my Google Data Studio to run very specific oil price reports, right? I did that just to double check on the oils, Singapore, expensive, right? When it comes to the oil, car prices and the car oil, sorry, petrol. So I literally plot in using on Google Data Studio, and it really helps on telling me where exactly the best and cheapest areas in the east to purchase petrol, right? So I've done that before. Yeah. Okay. I think that's basically it, team. Okay, I have one more question. So as long as there is data source available for selection, we can pull the data. Yes, that's correct. As long as we have the data source, we can able to pull in the event. Yeah, I think if there is no data source available there, like, hey, alamak, my platform, whichever platform you have, has no data source listed in the data connector, you can get a developer to build it for you, right? It's running on a very popular JavaScript and Google Data Studio scripts and everything. It's very straight up. Just get a developer to help you build the data connector, and then you're off and running already, right? So it's very open and very flexible in that sense. Okay. All right. I think that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoy this session on Google Data Studio, and I hope you guys learn a thing or two. Please feel free to look into our digital marketing courses on immersity.com. We have a lot more than just Google Data Studio. We have Google Analytics, Google Ads, and social and stuff like that. So please feel free to go in and browse our content in that sense, right? Thank you very much, people. I really hope you enjoyed, and thank you for giving me your time for this particular session. Have a good evening. Thank you. Oh, everything. What are charges for data retrieval? Again, I just saw one question. What are the charges for data retrieving from Google Data Studio? No charges, guys. Yeah, no charges at all.